हेलो एवरीबॉडी, वेलकम टू बिट इनिंग। साथ में मिलके शुरू करते हैं जिंदगी की दूसरी इनिंग। मैं काशिफ भाई जितना अच्छा टैगलाइन नहीं देता हूँ, बट टुडे द पर्सन वी हैव इज वन ऑफ द फ्लैग बेयरर्स ऑफ द कॉस्मोस इकोसिस्टम। आपको पता होगा, कॉस्मोस इज वन ऑफ दोज ecosystems that has existed since the days of Ethereum, or even early, if Sunny wants to correct me later. और उसके अलावा Cosmos has had the same number of issues that Bitcoin and Ethereum has. The issue of being called that it is done and dusted. And इसके बहुत सारे इंस्टेंसेस हुए हैं, 2017 में हुए, लूना के समय आते हुए, जब लूना आया था तब हुए। तो सारे के सारे एक्सपीरियंसेस समझने के लिए we will go to Sunny and understand that. But if I give you a short introduction of Sunny, I would say he's a college dropout. इंडिया में क्या है ना, कॉलेज ड्रॉपआउट्स का अलग क्रेज है। तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, बिफोर आई स्टार्ट, आई वुड से Sunny is as uneducated as me in a lot of ways. Sunny is one of those जिसने अपनी छोटी उम्र के अंदर he started being a researcher at Tendermint, जो आज भी अधिकतर ब्लॉकचेन्स की कोर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर लेयर का एक सिग्निफिकेंट पार्ट है। एंड फ्रॉम देयर he launched the Osmosis chain, which is as respected as Uniswap in Ethereum. तो एक तरह से आप अगर हेडन को जानते हो, हेडन एडम्स, who is the founder of Uniswap on Ethereum, I would say Sunny is one of the core developers of Cosmos, and he is one of the founders of Osmosis, which is one of the biggest DEX on the Cosmos ecosystem, and he has got the respect of almost all the researchers in the Web3 world, given that his work at Tendermint is still being used by most people in and across all the blockchains. आपने अगर Matic और Polygon के बारे में सुना हो, तो Matic और Polygon भी Tendermint को यूज करते हैं, जिसके अंदर जिसको बनाने के लिए Sunny has played an important part. So he's, I would say, Web3 की दुनिया, I would give a shout out to Ajit Tripathi ji, जिन्होंने हमें Sunny से connect करवाया, so that we could give you this quality person and his quality time, his experience of getting into Web3 and launching this big DEX called Osmosis, which is doing crazy amount of TVL as of right now as we speak, as DYDX has moved from Ethereum to Cosmos. हर चीज समझेंगे, इनकी लाइफ के बारे में समझेंगे, कैसे इन्होंने कॉलेज को ड्रॉप करके टेंडरमेंट जैसी चीज में काम करने का सोचा, जो उस समय दाएं बाएं सीधे पीछे कुछ भी नहीं था। कैसे अपने इंडियन पेरेंट्स को, मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इंडियन ब्राउन पेरेंट्स को समझाया कि भाई मैं छोड़ के ये अजीब सी चीज करना चाहता हूँ, और कैसे उन्होंने कॉस्मोस में he played that important part, and right now is one of the most significant chain and project on Osmosis chain. अगर मैं करना चाहूँ तो I'll keep continuing, और 40 मिनट का मेरा ही शो हो जाएगा, but since we have got Sunny's time, I would give Sunny the mic to start with and give his formal introduction.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is very fun. This is first time. I'm surprised it's taken me this long to ever do a Hindi podcast. So, I was telling Pranav and Kashif before, मेरा हिंदी बहुत अच्छा नहीं है. घर पे मेरे parents मुझसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं, और मैं उनको इंग्लिश में जवाब देता हूँ. इसलिए मैं सब कुछ समझ आती है, लेकिन बोलने में बहुत मुश्किल आती है, इसलिए मैं इंग्लिश में बोलूंगा.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I'm just really excited to be here, and getting a chance to talk about to a new audience that we don't normally get to talk to in Cosmos. So that's exciting.
Okay, so Sunny, our podcast is one of the most watched podcast in India, I can say that, and our main focus is on Web3 education, right?
Mhm.
And we are so happy and so proud to bring you, on our channel. So, like, for anybody who has started their journey, they have this fascinating story behind them, right?
Mhm.
So if I have my own story, Pranav has his own story, so people will first of all like to understand that from where you started, how it started, and what was your first encounter with Bitcoin. I'm sure it must have been your first encounter with Bitcoin, and then you later figure out that okay, this industry has so much to do further.
Mhm.
So what was your journey, how it started?
Yeah. Funny, actually, my first encounter was not with Bitcoin. It was with Dogecoin. And
Okay.
this was high school for me. So it must have been
Mm,
2015. And one of my a friend or someone overheard, I forgot what it was, but I overheard someone say, Dogecoin just sponsored the Jamaican bobsled team. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, what? None of that
mm,
sentence made any sense. So I had to
mm,
go home and look up Dogecoin. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay. But then it talked
mm,
about Bitcoin, obviously. And so then I look up Bitcoin and I'm like,
mm,
oh, okay, this is interesting. Yeah. And then, so that's like the first time I ever even heard of Bitcoin. And
mm,
the spark of interest came. Um, then I was at this hackathon. There was this one guy who came. He started talking about why Bitcoin is a big
mm,
deal. I made my first Bitcoin wallet then, and so it was interesting. But I didn't fully I had a Bitcoin wallet, and he sent me
mm,
like a little bit of Bitcoin, like $10. Maybe now, actually, I have to go check that wallet. Maybe it's like a lot more now. But when I get to college now, so I getting started college in 2015 at UC Berkeley. Um, I was studying computer science, but also was studying like political economy and history. For me, my passion was always on history and stuff. My favorite subject in school was always history, and so, but I feel computer science was the way for me to. I wanted to always do something more in politics and economics, but I knew that technology was IT was the future, and how I can use that as a tool to build political economic change. And so I got to Berkeley. I was trying out a lot of different things, different clubs. Before I got into crypto, my focus was robotics. I was like, that was my passion. But then I joined this Bitcoin club because what my roommate was going there, and I walk in and like I didn't. It was a very small club at the time, like 5, 6 guys basically. Just like we'd get around, talk about Bitcoin, just talk about, oh, did you see what Roger Ver is doing? But they were like talking about like some like very complex like cryptography stuff that was like all way over my head. I didn't understand anything, but I just thought these guys are so smart, and I'm just gonna keep. I'm a freshman in college. These guys seem so smart. And out of all the clubs I went to, these 5, 6 guys in the Bitcoin club, they were like seemed more intelligent than anyone else. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna keep showing up to this club again and again, and hopefully I'll just like become smarter just by sitting with them and listening to them, even if I wasn't understanding it. So I started doing that, and I like kind of got the basics of Bitcoin and stuff. I still wasn't fully committed to it yet. When I finally committed to it was that following summer. I knew the basics, but we were like, why is this club so small? Why are there's only like 6, 7 of us at this point? Like, why is everyone not excited about this stuff? And what we realized was, well, our thought was maybe it's because no one understands how this stuff works. We have to make it easy to teach, like understand it. And so me and 2 of my friends from the club, decided let's create a course on understanding Bitcoin. And at the time, I barely knew anything, but I was like, okay, that summer, I spent a lot of my time just like reading like the white paper, reading every material. There was this one course from Princeton. They had a Bitcoin course. So we took a lot of ideas from that, but we basically built our own Bitcoin and blockchain course, and started teaching it. So that was the thing I mentioned. UC Berkeley has a very cool program called Decals, which basically says students can teach courses. You'd have to find one professor to come and like sponsor the course, basically. But if you can find that professor to sponsor it, the students can teach. Not four. It's not going to be 4 unit. Normal courses are 4 units. This will be a 1 unit course that students can teach. So that's what we did. Was we decided, okay, so we taught this class, and first semester I think we had like 60 people sign up, and so it was like really successful for that. And we taught people about how cryptography, Merkle trees, how proof of work work. At the time, we were all very Bitcoin maximalist, and so we were like, I looked at some of my old lectures. It's a little bit cringy. I was like, oh, like, proof of stake is a scam, and you don't listen to those is whatever. But so yeah, I started teaching that course. We started a new club called Blockchain at Berkeley. So that old Bitcoin club kind of fizzled out basically, and so we started a new club called Blockchain at Berkeley, and we kind of like took the students from our course, helped bootstrap this thing. And for a while, I think the thing I was most proud of is in that course, like from the period of like I would say 2016 to 2018, I think it was like the best way to learn crypto. Like now there's so many like educational materials and everything you can go to learn, but like there was a good period of like I think 12 to 18 months where like if you wanted to learn crypto, like people would go watch our lectures from that course. So
I before you go ahead, I
Mhm.
want to say that the reason why I respect you so much is because you're one of the co-founders of blockchain at Berkeley. And जब मैंने पहली बार पढ़ा था blockchain के बारे में, वो मैंने ब्लॉकचेन बाय बर्कली से ही पढ़ा था. You guys used to do a course online and give materials. Plus आप लोग एक cohort चलाते थे उस समय पे. Aparna Krishnan, you and few other people used to teach blockchain around that time, and that's how I got introduced to blockchain in deep aesthetics.
Yeah.
So yeah, carry on.
Yeah, and it's fun because teaching is so good because it's like you get to teach people, but you also learn so much yourself because if you two reasons. One, it like forces you to learn. If you have to learn something, like if you have to teach something next week, you better learn it this week, right? And also you think you understand something, and then you start teaching it, and then people start asking questions, and then you're like, wait, actually, I don't. You're right. I don't actually understand that. And so, and when you teach, and people ask questions, that's when you realize, like, oh, where your gaps in understanding are. So that's what I'm sure that's probably also why you guys maybe do podcasts as well. Is it's a way of teaching, but to learn as well yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on daily basis, I must tell you, Sunny, that I personally read more than 30 to 32 articles and one or two research papers.
Mhm.
And yesterday only I was going through a research paper where it has been proven that Bitcoin mining takes lesser energy than your electric vehicles industry. And people generally don't understand how deeper meaning it has, right?
Mhm.
So Sunny, you're absolutely right that teaching is one way of learning as well, because if you're not teaching, you're not learning. When you
Yep.
teach, you learn, right?
Yep.
So as an educator, I can tell you that there is a clear educator inside you. I can relate to it, because you're not that ICO guys who ICO guy who just suddenly realize, oh my god, there's a lot of money to make in here, let me just jump in.
Mhm.
So you basically, you didn't even knew that how this industry will shape in future, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
deep respect for that. So I want to understand, Sunny, what was that moment when you figured out that, okay, maybe not only Bitcoin, there is so much to it, let me just go deeper into it, let me just understand smart contracts and
Yeah.
figure out that how much more can be achieved in it. So what was that moment when you realized that?
Yeah.
और वो
So
एनर्जी आप में एनर्जी कैसे आई कि यार कि देयर इज सो मच टू इट कि मैं अपना कॉलेज ही छोड़ देता हूँ और
yeah.
कॉलेज छोड़ के ये वाला काम करता हूँ.
So yeah, so that summer that I was learning Bitcoin, I went to a hackathon I was interning in the Bay Area. I went to a hackathon, and I told my friend there, I was like, hey, I heard about this Ethereum thing that we can like build applications on top of it. Maybe we should look at it for the hackathon. We can do something. And what I did was, now summer 2016, so I opened Reddit on r/Ethereum to like understand what this thing is, and the entire front page is the DAO just got hacked, fork the chain, the world is burning. And I was like, what is this crap, right? And I just like turned it off, and I ignored, I didn't look at it again. I thought Ethereum is I don't know what they're talking about, insecure, like they're forking the chain, all this stuff. And so I kind of didn't look at Ethereum again for like another 9 months almost. So then now fast forward now to spring of 2017, there was at Blockchain at Berkeley, we used to do these things where we'd invite like guest speakers to come give talks at the for us on every other week. And one guy I forgot his name, but he's from DigixDAO. If I don't know if maybe people don't know what Digix is, but it was one of the early Ethereum projects. They were trying to do like tokenized gold on the blockchain, and so he came and gave a talk. He was like, I think he said he made the first ever smart contract transaction on Ethereum. So they're like OG project. And he explained Ethereum and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. All these ideas of smart contracts and everything. I still didn't fully buy the whole Ethereum stuff. I was still Bitcoin maxing, and this will kind of get into why Cosmos, but even today, I still Bitcoin is my heart. But the smart contracts are interesting, and so that's why that summer. So now this is summer after my second year of college. I decided to go intern at Consensus because I wanted to learn and understand more about Ethereum. And so I was interning there. I was working on a couple of projects. I helped build their Consensus Academy, which was their like smart contract education course, developer course. But then I also was working on this project called Alethio, which was like the early version of the graph. It was like the graph before the graph existed. But that also was nice because I got a lot of understanding of how the Ethereum protocol worked. But the most important thing that happened there was I met one of my really good friends. He was also interning at Consensus. His name is Nate Rush, and he got me interested in proof of stake. And so I just fell in love. And so he and we spent like every day just reading a different proof of stake white paper, and we read every single one. And out of all of them, I found like Tendermint. I was like, this one is just so simple and like easy and obvious, right? And so I was like, I want to work on that. I reached out to the Tendermint team and I asked them like, hey, is there some way I can help you with like, I have some ideas on how to improve Tendermint. How can I help you guys? And they told me about this Cosmos vision that they had. And like, I'd heard of Cosmos as well. I didn't realize when I reached out that it was like the same team building both of these things. And so they told me this idea, and that like, it really struck with me because I was like, oh, this is exciting. Because what is Cosmos? Cosmos is just this idea of, hey, we'll have lots of blockchains. All of them will be specialized application blockchains, and they're all going to talk to each other. And, for me, the Consensus, the Ethereum stuff was fun. All the smart contracts and all the applications were cool. But I was like, what is this ETH shitcoin? I want to work on Bitcoin. Like, I thought that was the point of this industry. And Cosmos was exciting to me because I'm like, oh, Bitcoin is just an app chain. It's just one of the application specific blockchains. And we're going to build with Cosmos, we'll build the entire ecosystem of other applications, but with Bitcoin as the money of all of these things. And that got me excited. And so that's kind of why I started working closely with the Cosmos team. And my Consensus internship, I kind of like semi stopped showing up halfway through. They kept paying me, so thank you. But thanks, Joe Lubin. But I kind of got really into the Cosmos stuff, got really interested in the proof of stake, really into the app chains. And so, okay, the story of how I dropped out. My plan was I was going to go back to school my third year, and I was going to like work part-time with Cosmos, with Tendermint, and work and still go to school. Right before classes started, the syllabus for one of my courses came out, and the professor, the midterm for that class, it conflicted with DevCon 3, and I really wanted to go to DevCon. And so I emailed the professor saying like, hey, like there's this big crypto conference. Can I like move the midterm around here and there? And he's like, no, you can't. Like, or if you do that, you're gonna fail the class. And I was like, okay, well now I have to make a decision. And so I decided, okay, I'm just gonna drop that class. And so now this is the night before classes start. I'm on the site and I'm a little bit drunk because, it's also the night before classes start. Or I'm just with all my friends who are like, school is starting, everyone hanging out, drinking. So I'm on the site to like drop that one class, and I'm just looking at the site and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drop all my classes. This is like stupid. Like, and I realized that like the DevCon versus the midterm was just like one example of how the like schooling stuff was going to keep getting in the way of like working on like the stuff I want to work on, which is the crypto stuff. And so I called my dad before I dropped out. I convinced him where you asked me how I convinced him was I had enough like AP credits. Like in the US, we have this thing called AP, similar to IB that I think you guys have in India, but like it's you can like when you're doing some high school classes, you can get some college credit. I had enough that if I really, really wanted to, I could graduate in 3 years. And so what I told my parents was, hey, let me take 1 year off to do explore this crypto stuff. And if it doesn't go well, if it doesn't work out, I'll go back and graduate on time in 4 years. I'll have to work a lot harder to make it graduate in that time, but you know, it's doable. And so they're like, okay, yeah, they had no argument against it, right? They was like, okay, that makes sense. So that's how I convinced them.
That's the only way you convince
Yeah.
brown parents, to be honest. But coming back to एक जो आपने comment में like बताया about Cosmos and the theory behind getting into the Tendermint consensus layer, मैं उसके ऊपर काशिफ का भी take लूंगा, because I think Kashif is one of the most respected Bitcoin maximalist in Web3, and I think Web3 की दुनिया पे हमें कितनी बार ऐसी sponsorship मिल गई जो हमको नहीं करनी है. And we have refused because Kashif's Bitcoin maximalistic approach.
I
So
see your
आपने
little
comment
Bitcoin
किया.
sign in the background there, actually.
Yeah. So that's the reason. So आपने comment किया, and I would just want to re-pronounce that, is that Bitcoin is one of the app chains of the whole ecosystem. और वो app क्या है? वो app है transactions and payments करने का. बिटकॉइन ने एक ब्लॉकचेन बनाई है जिसके थ्रू लोग पेमेंट्स कर सकते हैं, which is huge and big and is one use case. इसी तरह के दूसरे यूज केसेस हम बना सकते हैं, जैसे कि किसी को सिर्फ अगर ट्रेडिंग करनी है तो उसके लिए एक एप्लीकेशन बना सकता है वो, जिसके ऊपर एसेट सिर्फ ट्रेड होंगे. वैसे ही किसी को अगर पिक्चर्स मिंट करनी है ब्लॉकचेन के ऊपर तो वो एनएफटी की अपनी एक ब्लॉकचेन बना सकता है. दैट वाज द होल आइडिएशन इन 2050, जो कि अब जाके इथेरियम करने जा रहा है. बहुत लोग अब ऐप चेन्स के ऊपर जा रहे हैं, पर उस समय पे 2015 के अंदर यू थॉट थ्रू दिस एंड थॉट दैट इथेरियम इज अ शिट कॉइन जो जनरलाइज्ड ब्लॉकचेन बना रहा है जिसके ऊपर सब लोग स्कैम करेंगे. उससे अच्छा है सब लोग अपनी अपनी स्पेसिफिक चेन्स बनाए, and that's the way forward, with which is expanding on Bitcoin's vision of having different separate chains. और उन सब chains के लिए एक core heart, एक heart लगेगा for interacting. It's like that's the way to have consensus हर chain का एक heart होगा, और उस consensus mechanism का जिसका नाम था Tendermint, उसके ऊपर you started working. काशिफ भाई, आपको क्या लगता है, is Bitcoin one of the app chains of all the other app chains?
So Bitcoin is has a very different use case, right? I mean, it is not meant for all different kind of experiments. It is doing things. One thing that is the most important thing. It is solving the problem of money.
Mhm.
Because if you can solve that problem is a $1 trillion problem, by the way. I mean, you have this $1 trillion in the market, and we all know that how money is getting printed. How this inflationary, all the economies, major economies are going through that inflation. All the economies like Venezuela, and there are many countries who are going through hyperinflation, double-digit inflation. We all know that money is one of the most important things. And if you can decentralize money, if you can have a money with that is censorship resistant, that is decentralized, that can be sent over the internet, and people can actually control that money themselves. I mean, this is like so amazing. So Bitcoin is just trying to do that one simple thing, but the most important thing. I think the other chains, what they are trying to do, like what Ethereum started, and how Cosmos and other chains are obviously trying to claim, to solve that blockchain trilemma, right? Because Ethereum got a criticism that Ethereum is good, but it's slow. Let me have one chain that can solve all those three aspects. And I'm sure that though every other chain tries to have convince that they've been able to solve it, but they're not confident at the core. Still there are a lot of factors that are still in question, like for Solanas and for other chains, without naming them. No chain is 100% perfect. I'm sure every other chain is evolving. So my question here is, Sunny, many people see Cosmos ecosystem, or for that matter any other L1 ecosystem, that they are competitor to Ethereum. I want to ask you this question, Sunny, that when people ask you that are you a competitor to Ethereum, how do you answer that question? That you see yourself as a competitor to Ethereum or competitor to any other chain, or you are in your own very important or a very unique zone where you're not competing with anybody, but you're trying to solve something and be collaborating in approach? How do you answer that?
Yeah, I think.
Cosmos. By
Mhm.
you, we mean Cosmos, right? Just for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you
Yeah.
Cosmos versus Ethereum. Yeah.
yeah. So in you had this terminology, Ethereum killer, that everyone was branding and using, right? And I think Cosmos never branded itself as an Ethereum killer because we were off doing our own thing. So if you look at one thing maybe worth reminding everyone, Cosmos is not a blockchain, it's not an L1. It is a open source stack and a network of blockchains, right? It's the way I describe it is very similar to Linux, right? What is Linux? The operating it's a set of open source stack. It's also a community, right? There's a community around Linux, and it's a network, right? With Linux computers, they kind of were with the internet now, you can connect these Linux computers into a network. But they're it's not one blockchain or anything like that. It's an open source thing. Same thing with Cosmos. Ethereum was built. No, we're building one blockchain to try to do everything, and all the other Ethereum killers were following that model, right? Had like Solana was okay. No, our blockchain is better than Ethereum. Uh, you know, Tron, our blockchain is better than Ethereum. Avalanche, our blockchain is better than Ethereum. Cosmos was never like, we were just like, that mindset is actually the wrong one, because there is never going to be one blockchain that's going to win. The entire system is going, just like there's not one computer that, like, it's like, who has the best computer in the world? It's like that's a nonsensical question, because different computers need to do different things. And like what's really going to happen is like you're going to have a network of many computers, and our goal was just to build Linux and build TCP/IP, because we're like, okay, one computer is not going to win, one blockchain is not going to win. Let's just make it easy for people to build custom blockchains and make it easy for these things to interoperate. I think Cosmos fundamentally always had a different philosophy than Ethereum. Like, I gave a talk 2 or 3 weeks ago at a different conference where I was just talking about like the technology of a blockchain often reflects the cultural and like political values of the community that builds it, right? And Ethereum, their original catchphrase was the world computer. And Cosmos is like very anti-world computer. We like to call it, we're building community computers, local computers. And so I had a tweet a couple of weeks ago. I asked, do you think Ethereum is a globalist technology? And Vitalik like DM'd me about it. He's like, oh, you should also ask, do you think globalism is a good thing or not? And I think the Ethereum mindset is one of very much about like, it is a more, it comes from a very globalist view of the world, where while I think Cosmos's political values, we tend to be more localist, right? We think that like, oh no, every community should be like sovereign and have its own like locality. And then through like, if people want to interoperate with each other and talk to each other, they can, but by default, we should believe, yeah. So that's just the political philosophy that I think
Right. in a way you're saying that Ethereum is trying to be global first and like Cosmos is trying to be local first. इसका मतलब ये है कि अगर मैं चाहूँ कि मैं इंदौर की एक ब्लॉकचेन बनाऊं और उसके ऊपर हम एक्टिविटी करें तो हम कर सकते हैं. अगर मैं चाहूँ कि हम हमारे मीमर्स की एक कम्युनिटी बनाएं और उस पे मीम कॉइन्स ही मीम्स कॉइन डालें जो काशिफ भाई के फेवरेट हैं, पप्पी इनो एंड ऑल दीज, तो वो हम कर सकें. वर्सेस ऑन इथेरियम इट्स मोर अ ग्लोबल थिंग, और वो उस नैरेटिव से चलते हैं कि अगर आपको कुछ भी बनाना है तो पूरी दुनिया के लिए बनाना पड़ेगा और वो दुनिया के साथ आपस में रहेंगे, एक ही चेन के ऊपर रहेंगे. वर्सेस कॉस्मोस में अपनी अपनी इकोसिस्टम जो रहेंगे बट दे कैन ऑलवेज कम्युनिकेट विद ईच अदर, व्हिच इज व्हाट Indian societies are also like. It's like it's like there is this Baniya community and then there is the Sindhi communities. ये आपस में interact करते हैं and then they have an interaction together and eventually we have India in general and things like that. So ये बहुत interesting view है आपका.
India and US are very similar in that regard, where I think in India and US both the states are like much more culturally distinct. Vitalik is Canadian. I think Canada takes, you have some countries, Canada, France, these tend to take a much more unitarian approach to how like politics works. And I think that gets reflected in the design, cultural values of the technology.
जैसे अल्टीमेटली इथेरियम का गोल भी जो शार्डेड चेन की हम बात करते हैं, राइट, कि अल्टीमेटली इथेरियम का जो एंड गोल है, जो अगर हम उनका रोड मैप देखें और विटालिक ने जो रोड मैप बताया तो उसमें जो शार्डेड चेन है वो उसका एंड गोल है. तो उसकी पॉसिबिलिटी कब होगी, कैसे होगी, क्या होगी, दैट ओनली टाइम कैन ओनली टेल. क्या हम ये देख सकते हैं, जो मेरी अभी तक सनी से जो भी बात हुई यार, जो मैं समझ पा रहा हूँ कि कॉस्मोस जो अल्टीमेटली इथेरियम करना चाहता है फ्यूचर में, उसका एक प्रीकर्सर मूवमेंट है? क्या वो कॉस्मोस पहले करके दिखा रहा है जो अल्टीमेटली इथेरियम ने बाद में करना है?
So I think what happened was Ethereum wanted to do the sharding, but how sharding worked was everything was still Ethereum, and all of it was just taking one thing and running it in parallel, but it's still all owned by ETH holders, one team, one development stack, not that much room for experimentation. Cosmos said, no, we also have all these different blockchains, but all these blockchains are distinct use cases, but distinct teams. All the, people change how their blockchain works. I want to change my governance to work this way. Terra wanted to change their app blockchain to work a different way. Everyone was like, it was about homogeneous versus heterogeneous, right? If you have everything is the same, even if you're running multiple blockchains, or is everything different? Now with Ethereum, I think what eventually ended up happening with Ethereum was they realized that is not working. The homogeneous sharding is not going to work. And you see this whole proliferation of different roll-up stacks. You have Polygon, you have Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, all of these different roll-up stacks is kind of almost, I call it like the cosmosification of Ethereum, where the Ethereum architecture has been slowly shifting towards like the Cosmos design eventually.
Right.
I'm willing to bet the sharding will never happen on Ethereum, because I think that most of the stuff will end up just doing roll-ups instead, and there's no need to actually shard the base chain of Ethereum.
Right. And जो data availability आजकल आ रही है उसके कारण तो और जो data needs है that being given to data availability layers as well, तो sharding शायद नहीं हो पाएगी.
Even the data availability was like that was started kind of by Celestia, was one of the first projects to really Cosmos chain that really started the data availability. And then Ethereum realized that, if all the computation is all going to move to the L2s, what happens on the L1? So that's when they kind of shifted towards this data availability narrative.
Right. So in a way, अब मैं अभी Def Connect में था 2 दिन पहले, और if you talk to any Def, they are either doing Cosmos app chain or doing Polygon zkVM app chain, or doing Osmos, or doing optimistic OP stack app chain, right?
Yeah.
तो जो Cosmos ने envision किया था more localistic mesh chains, वही अब जाके like truthfully हो रहा है. But फिर भी क्रिटिसिज्म ये है कि इथीरियम के पास कम्युनिटी है और कॉस्मोस के पास एक बहुत ही शिटी गवर्नेंस है, स्ट्रेट ऑन फ्रंट ऑन फेस ऑफ यू. इथीरियम के पास विटालिक है और कॉस्मोस इज मोर लाइक मच मोर डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड एंड देयर आर पीपल, यू, जाकी एंड अदर पीपल जो मिलके डिसीजंस बनाते हैं, एंड दैट्स व्हाई देयर आर सर्टेन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स दैट अराइज ऑन दोस केसेस. इथीरियम के पास इन जनरल एक बड़ा नैरेटिव है और उसको दिखाने के लिए कुछ ज्यादा बड़े डैप्स और टीवीएल है, और कॉस्मोस उसके ऊपर कैचअप कर रहा है डिस्पाइट हैविंग अ बेटर लोकल डिजाइन जो इवेंचुअल एंड गेम है वेब3 का. तो व्हाट इज योर कमेंट्स ऑन दीस थिंग्स?
I think that is definitely correct. I do think hot take, spicy take. Everyone talks about ETH alignment. I think ETH alignment is a bear market phenomenon. During the bull market last time, no one cared about ETH alignment. The biggest chains were Solana, Terra. These were the fastest growing things. During the bear market, what happens is, okay, the problem is all the Solana people lost all their money because of FTX. All the Cosmos people lost all their money because of Terra. So we had no more money. Ethereum people still had a little bit of money during the bear market, and that's where all the capital was, but there was no new capital. It was the same like 5,000 whales just playing, like moving money between all these L2s, right? There was no new inflows of capital into crypto that time, and Ethereum was the only one that maintained some capital base. But when the bull market comes, that's not going to be the case anymore, right? Like the Cosmos, like Osmosis, right? Specifically, we're not thinking about how do we get users from Ethereum, because Ethereum doesn't have any users. Ethereum has, if I had to guess, probably less than 100,000 like weekly, like daily active users, right? Like
1 lakh log.
Yeah. And so we're like, okay, we as the DEX, our job is to go, how many users Binance has? We need to go capture even 1%, 5% of that user base, right? And so I think this idea, and like that we do that not by like being like, oh, look, we're more aligned with Ethereum, because the average person, user in India and anywhere, does not care, oh, are they ETH aligned or not, right? They just care, okay, is this a better product? Is this a better, and that's kind of our, like, that's why DYDX moved to Cosmos, because they were like, the ETH alignment doesn't matter for us. It's what software stack is going to let us build the best product, and that's why they chose to use Cosmos. Terra did the same thing. Celestia did the same thing. Everyone who, it's what's going to build you the best product, and that's how you go get the users.
बहुत ही क्रेजी टेक है आपका ये कि यार जो करंट जो डैप्स हैं जो इथेरियम अलाइनमेंट के ऊपर फोकस्ड है, वो करंट यूजर्स को अपनी तरफ अट्रैक्ट करना चाह रहे हैं. ऑस्मोसिस जो डेक्स है या फिर DYDX जो डेक्स है जो कॉस्मोस के ऊपर गया, उसको कोई मतलब ही नहीं है करंट यूजर से, या फिर लाइक इन एट द एंड व्हाट मैटर्स इज कि 1 लाख यूजर नहीं, 1 करोड़ 10 करोड़. कल इंडिया वापस मैंने याद दिला दिया काशिफ भाई को, पर कल इंडिया वर्सेस ऑस्ट्रेलिया का फाइनल था, 5.5 करोड़ लोग उसको ऑनलाइन देख रहे थे. दैट इज द काइंड ऑफ स्केल एंड अडॉप्शन दैट एवरीबडी ट्राइज टू गो एंड अचीव, और उस तरफ ऑस्मोसिस का फोकस है, व्हिच इज रियली ग्रेट. काशिफ भाई, यू आर सेइंग.
नहीं, एब्सोल्युटली, एंड आई थिंक DYDX का जो माइग्रेशन था वो एक ऐसा उसने शॉक वेव भेजी कि जब DYDX वाज मूविंग, was migrating, that was, I think, a turning point, or maybe that one event created a lot of noise at that time. So Sunny, what was the reason behind DYDX actually migrating? Was there any incentive alignment, or was there any reason that is not in public yet? But what was that moment when DYDX was migrating to Cosmos?
There's no, the real reason is regulatory, right? The chain that DYDX was running right now, the V3 chain, it is basically a centralized exchange, right? It is
Starknet.
non-custodial because it's like, the ZK proofs let it, anyone can, but it is centralized. Like it is one node that's processing every single transaction, and that comes with so much regulatory risk if you're running a derivatives exchange, especially, right? And so DYDX's main goal was, how do we build a decentralized exchange where we have a validator set, and the company is not the one running the chain, and none of the L2 solutions give you that today, right? Like almost everyone's L2 is one person running the sequencer, right?
Absolutely.
And that was realistically the number one reason why DYDX chose to do Cosmos. Like they can't do with the fake decentralization. They needed the real decentralization for the regulatory reasons.
Right.
Sunny, what is your claim on blockchain trilemma? I mean, I have seen, with all due respect, many projects and many chains shamelessly, they boast about it that they have solved the blockchain trilemma. But I want to understand, your when somebody comes up and say, have you solved that blockchain trilemma, and what is your standing? So what is your answer to that?
And I so rarely even think about the blockchain trilemma. It was security, decentralization, and scalability, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that generally long-term ZK proofs are the solution to a lot of things, because that gives you the security with like low resource costs, basically. But I think more generally, like, it seems to be very focused on a system where like everyone is running every blockchain, every application. I think like the fastest way to break the trilemma is to have app chains, right? The problem with these generalized blockchains is they don't scale because everyone is running every transaction. If I'm a user of Uniswap, why am I having to process the transactions of every single NFT mint and like whatever that I don't care about, not relevant to me whatsoever, but because everything is on one generalized blockchain, or even if it's on multiple generalized blockchains, right? The problem is as of now, all of these L2 networks are still so focused on generalized things, right? And like now they're all switching to app chains, but like, even Polygon, it ends up getting clogged because there was a big game or sunflower game or something that clogs the blockchain for everyone else trying to use it. How you solve this is just by splitting up the applications. You only have to process the transactions that you care about. And so the security is you choose your own trade-off of how much security and scale like you need you can choose to process only the things you care about. So that's, I think, actually the real way you don't solve the scalability problem, but you bypass the problem. It's like it's a misframe. I think people just overweighted the importance of this problem over the course of the years.
Awesome. Before we take your conclusive statement, I would want to know, थोड़ा सा आप जब Tendermint में काम कर रहे थे, what was your path to move to Osmosis, and what was your expectation versus what Osmosis has become?
Yeah. So that story was fun because our original Tendermint company went through a lot of drama. The company the CEO, his name is Jay, he kind of went a little bit crazy. And so because of that, it caused some internal drama where the company fell apart. No one wanted to work at that company or work under Jay anymore. But everyone wanted to keep working on Cosmos. So that's what I think has always been cool fascinating to me, where oftentimes when you have a company that falls apart, the project will fall apart. But here, even though the company fell apart, everyone in that company wanted to keep working on Cosmos in some shape or form. I actually just posted on Twitter just yesterday, like all the projects that came out of that company. So you had like Celestia, Osmosis, Nobles, Cosmos, like you had so many like a lot of the Cosmos ecosystem projects were started by the exodus of the people from that company, and then everyone started creating their own new companies. Zaki started Sommelier, Bucky started Informal System. So we seeded this Cosmos ecosystem by the explosion of the original company. So for me, when I left the company, I was interested in working on like, okay, what do I do? What should I work on now with this? We built all this open source software. We built Linux. It works. How do we build what's the application to build on top of Linux? And me and my co-founder Dev, um, we were very interested in privacy. Dev, he's like one of the best like cryptography experts out there. And so we were like, okay, we saw like, okay, when we got into the space, there was like three big problems that we like were interested in solving. There was proof of stake, scalability, and privacy. And so proof of stake, I think we did it. Like, we were successful at Tendermint. Now everyone's using our something based off of us, basically. Done. Scalability, it was like important, but there's like it was happening. There's enough people working on it. It'll happen. Privacy was the thing that we saw that not enough people are working on. And that's why we were like, okay, let's figure out how to solve privacy stuff. And the thing that we were most interested in to start with was the mempool privacy, to solve this like MEV problem where everyone is front running each other, sandwich attacks. And we saw that's actually a privacy issue, because what's happening is everyone is broadcasting their transactions to everyone to see. And that's why this is a privacy bug. And so let's figure out how to solve that privacy bug. So Deb and I, we spent some time designing a solution for that. And then we're like, this is a feature, not a product. Like we can go build a consulting company. Maybe we go sell it to roll-ups or something, but that's not going to be very profitable. So that's why we're like, well, let's build a product. What's the product? Let's build an exchange, because you look at all of crypto, the one thing that seems to make money is exchanges. Whether the market's going up or the market's going down, people are still trading. And so we're like, okay, let's build an exchange, but then start building these privacy features into the exchange. And that's kind of how Osmosis began. And in some ways it is what we expected, a lot of ways different. A lot of the privacy stuff is things we haven't gotten a chance to finish yet, because once you have a live product out there, then you get pulled in the direction of the market. Some of that privacy original vision, we have like half finished right now, but we need to spend more time getting that over the finish line. And then, the Cosmos ecosystem, it's been interesting in the sense that I would say Cosmos to me feels like the second biggest ecosystem right now after Ethereum. So that was good. That's kind of what we wanted. But I think the size of the Cosmos we're second place right now, but it's like first place, Ethereum is just so big, right? It's like we're so far behind even when we're in second place. And I think that, maybe that's just a function of the bear market. Maybe we'll see that, like I said, change as the bull market comes. I mean, we almost did. Terra got so big, and I think it's a matter of, and that's what I'm excited about, right? I'm excited about more sorts of like novel experiments. I feel like everything that you see happening on a lot of L2s is like copy paste stuff of existing things. And what I'm interested in, like, okay, what's going to be the next Terra, right? Terra, for all the faults, it was like this like radical experiment and like trying something fundamentally new. And I think we need to see more of that.
Right. डेफिनेटली मैं एक चीज बताता हूँ आप लोगों को कि जो अधिकतर प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं जब वो लॉन्च होते हैं ना, तो वो सबसे पहले जब उनका टोकन लॉन्च होता है तो उनकी कोशिश होती है कि वो एक्सचेंज पे जाके लिस्ट हो जाए, कैसे भी उनका टोकन जाके एक्सचेंज के ऊपर लिस्ट हो जाए, प्राइस बढ़ जाए, मार्केट में मजा आ जाए, एंड दे कैन फिल देयर बैग्स एंड फाउंडर्स कैन हैव अ लॉट ऑफ फन. बट जो मुझे पता चला है वो ऑस्मोसिस का ये है कि इनकी फ्रंट फेसिंग जो व्हाट दे से is that हमको कोई exchange के ऊपर list नहीं होना है, हमको उसके कोई फॉर्म नहीं भरना है, हमको उनके साथ कोई कंप्लाई नहीं करना है, हमको कोई लिक्विडिटी नहीं देना है. अगर आपको ऑस्मोसिस टोकन चाहिए तो हमारे कॉस्मोस लेके हमारे डेस्क के ऊपर आओ, फ्लिप करो और ऑस्मोसिस टोकन आपको मिल जाएगा. दैट इज ट्रू डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन, दैट इज द डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन एट इट्स कोर, जो शायद सतोशी ने भी इन्विजन किया था.
So
So
if we're
you
building a
guys have not
decentralized exchange, we need
polluted
to have
yourself. Yeah.
conviction in our own product. We can't we also want the holders of our token Osmo to have used our own product to get it, right? How can you own and govern our product without having been a user of it?
Right. So you have been at the purest of intents, and that's what I believe is true. But अब थोड़े से rapid fire 2 minute 1 minute answers के ऊपर आ जाते हैं, and they might be fiery. You can say to skip, but take it forward. काशिफ भाई, आपको कुछ बोलना है?
नहीं, you continue.
हाँ, तो मेरा फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन ये है कि given that आप कॉस्मोस में इतने बड़े हो, I'm sure you must have interacted with Do Kwon. तो what do you think of him? वो कैसे इंसान है? क्या उन्होंने लूना को एज अ स्कैम बनाने के लिए बनाया था? और जब लूना डाउन हुआ तो कॉस्मोस इकोसिस्टम क्या was it on the bricks of getting over?
Yeah, so I definitely don't think it was a scam. I think he really built this, he put his heart and soul into it. I think to the extent where he ignored the risks and he was just so I'm doing it like this, but so I mean, I think there was obvious risk factors that people would bring up, and he would shut them down or criticize them. So that was the fault. But at the same time, the entire time it was going down, he thought it would work. He thought the system would repay. I don't think until UST got to under 20 cents, I thought I was in conversation with him, and he thought it would fix itself again, and the peg would reestablish. So that was that. And I will say one thing I will
सब
say,
लोग उस समय पे सब लोग UST को जो है ऑस्मोसिस एक्सचेंज के थ्रू निकाल रहे थे. इट वाज अ बिग थिंग फॉर यू गाइस. तो वो कैसा टेम्परामेंट था सब टीम का?
Yeah, so we were the biggest DEX for UST, and so because of that, there was a lot of people, both UST and Luna, so people are exiting through osmosis, which caused Osmo price to also crash heavily. With Do, I will say the one thing I will, the best thing to describe who this guy is Terra just collapsed, $60 billion gone. He is probably the single most hated person in the world right now, and he gets up, he's like, Terra 2.0, let's do it again. I'm gonna make it all back, and and there's some level of just you can call that arrogance, or you can
resilience.
Call that resilience. That that's I was always pretty impressed by that.
Yeah.
How it affected Cosmos as a whole. It was, on one hand, the star project of Cosmos just collapsed, and a lot of people had money in these things. UST. And the thing is, it's with UST, it's okay, if Luna went to zero, it's okay, fine, but you know what you're doing. You're investing in crypto. Everything is risky. We know that. The problem is people were holding their stable coins, their life savings in UST because they thought it was a stable coin. Yeah, and when that went to zero, a lot of people were hurt really badly. So that was, Cosmos was kind of, like I said, the capital was eviscerated, and part of the problem with Cosmos now is the back when I was talking about the capital difference between Ethereum and Cosmos, the problem is all the risky capital is what got evaporated, right? You have some people who are more risk tolerant, willing to do. The people who had that risk tolerant side, they got eviscerated, and so now all Cosmos still has capital, but it's very institutional capital, less risky. So that's why it doesn't activate as easily into DeFi and whatnot. So that's one.
So इसीलिए थोड़ा छोटा है वो in terms of Ethereum, जो Ethereum ने अपने आप को in most of its cases after the DAO hack अधिकतर ऐसे big incidences से बचा, और इसीलिए लोग ज्यादा Ethereum align और उसके अंदर TVL ज्यादा पाते हैं. Second question.
But I think
can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I was going to say the good thing that came out of the Terra collapse was Terra had all these projects and ecosystem. Those all started building throughout Cosmos. And so the Terra ecosystem of project, so some of the biggest projects in Cosmos. So remember I talked about when the Tendermint company collapsed, that was the first explosion that seeded a lot of Cosmos projects, Celestia, Osmosis. When Terra collapsed, that created a lot of new projects. You had Skip, you had Kujira, you had White Whale, you had Mars, you have Leap, which is one of my favorite wallets. They're an Indian team actually. So, but yeah, they used to be a Terra project. So all these Terra projects became Cosmos projects, and that seeded the ecosystem that is today Cosmos.
Yeah. So I mean, in a sense, जल्दी कहते हैं ना कि जल्दी परेशानी आ गई, और वो भी कुछ छोटी मोटी परेशानी नहीं. तो I think that in a short term, definitely there was trouble for the, and there were a lot of question mark for the ecosystem. But when you see today, I think that incident has made you more stronger. I mean, the Cosmos ecosystem has become more stronger and more, the learnings are in a positive sense now.
What doesn't kill you kills you makes you stronger. So that's what it is. Second question. Ethereum के पास Vitalik है, वो 100 तरह की conferences के अंदर जाता है, and he is able, और वो अपना एक blog भी लिखता है जिसको अधिकतर लोग judiciously follow करते हैं, and in a way nobody questions or crosses that particular thing, और उसके हिसाब से narrative building होती है Ethereum ecosystem में, जो कि थोड़ा सा थोड़ा नहीं काफी centralized भी है और थोड़ा बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक भी है Ethereum के लिए. ऑन द अदर हैंड कॉस्मोस के अंदर सब लोग एक दूसरे को थोड़ा सा लताड़ते रहते हैं, एंड देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ गवर्नेंस एंड पॉलिटिक्स दैट हैपन. फॉर एग्जांपल कॉस्मोस 2.0 एक बहुत ही प्यारा प्रपोजल था, इन्फ्लेशन कम होने वाला था कॉस्मोस के अंदर, देयर वर अदर थिंग्स दैट इट कुड हैपन, बट given the governance troubles that exist and there is no holy figure in the Cosmos ecosystem, there is always a little slower development in general in Cosmos ecosystem. तो उसके ऊपर आपका क्या टेक है जल्दी से in 1 minute?
Yeah, there's pros and cons. I think things are slower, but I think there's a strength there too, because I think sometimes Vitalik will set the ecosystem on a route because that's what he thinks is right, and then it can end up being the wrong thing to focus on, right? You saw that happen with Plasma. I think the Ethereum, and I'm a hot take once again. I think data availability is going to be the same thing. I think data availability is a little bit too. People think it's more important than it actually is. I don't think it's actually that important of a thing, and you're going to see that happening. Like I think Ethereum right now is betting right now on as rollups go computation there. Ethereum is where the data availability is going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be data availability is going to every Polygon is going to have its own DA. Arbitrum is going to offer its own DA, and I think Ethereum is going to be stuck with what is our product now. I think ETH is the product, right? Which is okay, and this is actually what I've been telling Cosmos to Atom to do as well. It's like, don't worry about what the Atom is the product of this and just figure out how to make that valuable. So pros and cons. What's nice is that it's slower but more resilient.
Cosmos अपना
every ecosystem has this problem of what happens when Vitalik dies, or what happens when Vitalik goes, if the key figure of the ecosystem goes away, does the ecosystem collapse? Good thing with Cosmos is we already figured out the answer to that. We survived even once that happened.
Right, and similarly Bitcoin did the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
Last question for the podcast, और ये बहुत ज़्यादा क्योंकि इंडिया में हमारा पॉडकास्ट बहुत ज़्यादा देखा जाता है, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में हमारा पॉडकास्ट बहुत ज़्यादा देखा जाता है, and traditionally since your parents have also been around, वो उसी मूल के निवासी थे, traditionally it has been one of the places जहां से इनोवेशन आप एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर सकते. इट्स रादर मोर ह्यूमन इंटेंसिव प्लेस, राइट, इन जनरल. बट थिंग्स हैव चेंज्ड फॉर बेटर व्हेन इट कम्स टू वेब3. सो कॉस्मोस का क्या विजन है इंडिया को लेके, ऑस्मोसिस का क्या विजन है इंडिया को लेके, और आपका क्या विजन है वेब3 को लेके इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंडिया?
I think that so in Cosmos, a lot of the projects are from India. Actually, there's a big community in
Persistence.
Persistence, Leap, like in Hyderabad and in Bangalore. Omniflix is another one that we work with closely there. So a lot of stuff there. I'm actually going to be coming in January. I just want to come meet everyone there, so I'm excited for that.
That's amazing.
In general, I think that we often always talk about banking the unbanked, and I think India is actually very forward on payments technologies, right? Like UPI and everything, but ahead of almost the whole world on this. And I am hoping that this is a place where blockchain can come help and improve these things even further. Indians tend to be very savings oriented, right? Everyone gifts each other gold on birthdays and everything, right? And it's I think on one hand, it's people love their gold in India, but if we can figure out how to teach them about Bitcoin and how this is digital gold, how I think there's a huge market opportunity there where India I think might be end up being one of the biggest holder bases of Bitcoin if we can get that education done right.
Thank you, Sunny.
Kashif, final takes.
Final take is there is one last question that I want to ask you. You heard about BlackRock spot ETF for Bitcoin. Now we are hearing BlackRock or Fidelity spot ETF for Ethereum. Are we going to see a spot ETF for Cosmos or any other chain you think in future?
I'm sure at some point. I mean, to be honest, this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I don't really follow it too much, but I'm sure that eventually these funds are gonna there'll be demand for more than just Bitcoin and ETH. I think Bitcoin probably has the majority of demand right now in institutional markets, but then followed next by ETH, probably I don't know, it'll probably start to trickle down. I mean, I focus less on how do we get our stuff in crypto into TradFi. I'm thinking more how do we get the TradFi users into crypto.
TradFi, I think that's the right approach.
Yeah.
Right, Sunny, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your thoughts. I'm definitely, whenever you'll be here in India in January, we'll definitely catch up and meet once again.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny, for your time. और ये था आज का एपिसोड एंड सनी के साथ. और अगर आपको ये एपिसोड पसंद आया तो प्लीज डू हिट द लाइक बटन एंड डू कमेंट. एंड इफ यू वांट सम अदर founder or some other personality that you want us to interview, please do mention his name in the comment section and we'll get back. Pranav.
No, first of all, I would like to thank Sunny कि उन्होंने इतने सारे hot takes करे. I would say it is one of the things जो हम shorts पे चलाएंगे कि सनी ने आज ये बोला बिटालिक के बारे में, सनी ने आज ये बोला कॉस्मोस के बारे में. तहलका, we'll do some तहलका around it. But on a serious note, there are very few people in the Cosmos ecosystem who have the depth and the width that is required to make Web3 work. And I think Sunny has the right experience of being a researcher in Tendermint and then doing a DEX, which is a Cosmos implementation, and doing it right. So the resilience that Cosmos has shown, वो हमें दिखाता है कि वो एक लंबी रेस का घोड़ा. और सनी के जो thoughts हैं around the de-Ethereumification of the Web3 ecosystem, वो bull market में hopefully fruition में आएंगे, and we'll see a lot of these things coming along. So hopefully आपने ये सीखा हो कि Cosmos ecosystem में for India सिर्फ और सिर्फ Ethereum नहीं है जो Polygon ने बना दिया इंडिया को. They should look at the other side, look into the Cosmos ecosystem, understand the width and depth, and maybe align on a lot of things around there, because there is for sure a lot of things that are coming up in the ecosystem that we should be looking into. And I think Sunny really pointed out most of the headlines that of course can become big.
Right. With this thought, thank you very much.
Thank you.